So, Kanupriya, this is the class for we call the Wunderkammer Program, and basically all the students are industrial design students, and this is at RMIT in Melbourne. This class is an online class, so all the students are joining in remotely. Some of them, I believe, are not even in Melbourne, so some of them are joining remotely. So basically the focus of this class is to look at the different kinds of tactics in design. So we're looking at it from an environmental point of view, and that's where we thought that your expertise would fit in very well. So thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us today, and we are very, very excited to have you. I'll do a quick introduction for everybody to Kanupriya. Kanupriya Harish is a development professional who did her Masters of Philosophy at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, and she also studied sustainable environmental management at the University of California in the United States. She joined Jalbhagirathi Foundation during its nascent stages in 2004. Kanupriya Harish was appointed project director in 2007. She then went on to become a trustee in 2009, and was appointed executive director in 2014. As the operational head of the organization, she has implemented and managed a large portfolio of projects across 700 villages to revive traditional water harvesting systems through facilitation and capacity building of community institutions that help to address drinking water scarcity, climate change, enterprise development, and also setting up small water enterprises. And with that, Kanupriya, I would like you to take over the floor.
Thank you very much, Vanya, and thank you all of you for having me here and share my experience of working in villages and remote villages in India and Rajasthan for the past 20 years. Um, Most often I like to call my work or the work that Jalbhagirathi Foundation has done as Rain for Life. When I say rain, what does it mean for all of us? For some it is clouded skies, lightning, thunder, a time to enjoy, frolic, dance. But probably for none of us over here, it means water for life. And for thousands of people in India, rain is water to drink, it is their survival. And the areas that we work in, people do not have even a glass of water to drink. So that is the reason why I like to call the work that we do Rain for Life. A little about Jal Bhagirathi Foundation. We are a non-profit organization. We were set up in 2002 with a mandate to work in and with water distressed communities with a vision for water security, which we hope is sustained by responsive governance, inclusive growth of people working together, leading to sustainable development. Talk about water. We all of us talk about water and water becoming a crisis. This is a map that I have pulled out from the World Economic Forum report. And if you see the red spots, the various different colors, it talks about the water crisis. And if you look at India, India per se, we are worst affected by water crisis. We have very, very severe pressure on water also because of our increasing population. It is a cause of major conflict, even though we may not talk about it, but water is a cause of major conflict not only in India but globally. Say between India and China, the Brahmaputra River has always been a cause of discontent. Uh, China and other Asian countries, especially the Tibetan Plateau, again, water, the rivers flowing between them is a cause of concern. India and Nepal, here Nepal feels that India being the big sister, Nepal doesn't get the right the right mm, use of the water. India and Pakistan obviously is a very, very prime example. We have an Indus Water Treaty which was brokered by the World Bank. It has been working very well between two nations that have not had very good relationships politically, but we still share our water resources through the Indus Water Treaty. And India and Bangladesh. Obviously, here again, Bangladesh feels that India is the big sister, and Bangladesh doesn't get the right share of the water, or the flooding and various issues about water. And with the melting Himalayas, with the melting snows, water over a period of time is actually becoming a major scarcity. You can only imagine three of us in the Indian subcontinent are nuclear powers. If something were to happen, what proportions it would take. When we talk about India, in India, we, particularly we work in Western Rajasthan. Rajasthan is a desert. We are the largest state of India. We have 11% of the geographical percentage of India. We have very, very little water resources. We have only 1.15% of surface water resources. All our rivers are dry. uh, we basically, they're all dry and salty. They carry no surface water. Our surface water sources are very, 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 very meager, and nearly 90% of the area that we work in is all drought prone. Now, if you look at this map of where we work in border districts. So we work in Western Rajasthan, and if you see the green highlighted area, that's where we work. So we work on district boundaries. Wherever the district boundaries meet is where we work, because that is where the problem of drinking water is very severe. We work in areas only where people do not have drinking water. So basically, if you're at the district center, um, you will have water, but as you move away from the district center, the water scarcity increases. To tell you a little about the desert, the Great Indian Thar Desert, it is also known as the Marwar. Marwar literally translates as the land of death. It is an extremely vulnerable environment. It has a very, very fragile ecosystem. It has very, very hot climate. We're only in April, and we're already at about 40 degrees. By May and June, our temperatures rise up to 50 degrees centigrade. This is a photograph that I had taken. It's one of my favorite photographs, where the camel, that is often known as the ship of the desert, has to stand in the shade, but the woman still has to headload water for her family. We have recurrent droughts. 43 out of the last 50 years have been drought years. And the probability that a particular year is going to be a drought year is nearly 40%. So that is how severe the water scarcity is. Are we all there?
Yeah, Kanupriya, we're all here. We
Okay.
can hear you.
All right. Okay. We have acute scarcity of drinking water. So, if you look at this photograph again, this is in Barmer district in Western Rajasthan. This woman has actually scooped out a hole, and she's collecting water from that hole. We have very, very little rainfall, 200 millimeters, which is just about 6 inches. Our groundwater is extremely saline. So this area that we work in is known for its salinity. It has two large saltwater lakes. One is called the Sambar Lake, which is close to Jaipur, the capital, and the other is called Pachpadra Salt, which is in Western Rajasthan in Barmer. And basically, people can harvest salt from the surface. The TDS in our water goes up to nearly 10,000 ppm, which is almost like adding 10 tablespoons of salt in water. That's how severe the salinity is. We have, because of the temperature, we have very, very high evaporation rates. So we get 200 millimeters, which is 6 inches, and we lose nearly 2 meters of water from an open surface in 1 year due to the evaporation. The government has done a lot of surveys, and there's a survey which is called as the National Habitation Survey. In that survey, basically, they survey the location of a drinking water point from the habitation of an individual. And nearly 40%, 38% to be precise, of households in the areas that we work in do not have a source of drinking water. Here I'm not talking about a potable source of drinking water. I'm talking about a source of drinking water between 1.5 to 5 kilometers. That is the amount people have to walk to get drinking water. But still, the Thar Desert is the most densely populated desert in the world. We have about 90 people per square kilometer. If you were to compare it to other deserts like the Sahara Desert, Sahara has only about 9 to 10 people per square kilometer. So, obviously, the pressure of population is extremely high in the desert. What does water scarcity mean to the region? Uh, it means poor quality of life. Obviously, the life of people is revolved around just provisioning for water. It means no livelihood because we are predominantly a pastoral economy and only dependent on rain fed agriculture, which happens between July to September. No education. Children, especially girl child, is pulled out of school to help their mothers provide for water. Poverty, obviously, because they do not have water and they do not have livelihood, so their whole life is tied around water. I mean, we who live in urban areas are so used to just getting up in the morning and opening a tap and getting water. These people spend all their time just collecting water. So basically, they have the differentiation between sweet water and salty water. The sweet water is not water that has sweet in it, it is potable water. And last not the least, it is drudgery for women. This is a little statistics I'd like to share with you that we do when we do our projects. What we do is we do a baseline survey to gather information against which we measure our impact. And on an average, in the area that we work in, women walk about 5 to 8 kilometers a day collecting water. And if I were to take a very conservative estimate, say she collects water for 40 years, which is obviously very, very conservative because she collects it for a longer period of time, she nearly travels 75,000 to 120,000 kilometers in her lifetime just collecting water, which is 3 times round the equator. So that is the amount of time that women spend just collecting water. So water availability, which is the focus of our work, is, and it becomes the first step towards poverty eradication and women empowerment. Now, when I say that the Thar has such severe scarcity of drinking water, it's a desert. It has always been a desert, and people have always survived the desert. But what happened? They survived the desert because they had these rich traditions of rainwater harvesting. So we had different types of rainwater harvesting structures. Besides the structures, we also had these systems to maintain these structures. So there were community institutions that used to work together within the village, and there was a sanctity attached to the rainwater harvesting structures, the systems, and this was used as a adaptive mechanism to the variation in climate, not just the change in climate, but also the variation in climate. So there were large catchment areas, which could be either a agor, which is only a catchment, which could be a gaucher, which was a pasture land, and sacred forests. These were repositories where water would get collected into structures that people could then use. But over a period of time, there has been a neglect and breakdown. There are various reasons for it. Just to talk about a few, there has been a dependence on the government. Initially, uh, we had the rulers who, and during that time, people just had to work for themselves. They had to provide for themselves. But with India becoming a welfare state, everybody thinks that the government is going to supply water. We have huge technological projects. We have huge pipeline projects that are coming in that are bringing water from far away places, from Punjab, which is really far away. So we have these interstate water sharing agreements, and the water comes in. But there is only so much of water. And because of this, there has been over a period of time a neglect and a breakdown on these traditional systems of rainwater harvesting. This is again um, uh, uh, a photograph that I pulled out from a book called Dying Wisdom, in case all of you are also interested in how rainwater harvesting was done in cities and how cities were made sustainable at that time. This is a map of the city of Jodhpur. And Jodhpur had an amazing system of rainwater harvesting. On the top right column, if you see, it is the fort, and from the fort was on a hill. All the runoff of the water would come down, it would go into the city. Even if today you walk into the city of Jodhpur, you will find these houses from outside, they look like houses, but when you go inside, they're all rainwater harvesting structures which are called bowries or step wells. And in the right side lower photograph, if you see, they had these water channels that were connected to various lakes that collected water, and it all was brought into the city of Jodhpur. Unfortunately, this system now is not being used, and we are dependent on piped water in the city of Jodhpur. Similarly, all over India, based on the local needs, we had these traditional systems of rainwater harvesting. So, what do we do now? What is our strategy? So, there is on the one hand weakening of social capital. People would not working together as they used to do that. There's absence of community ownership. A community structure is nobody's structure. And there is a centralized system. There's a dependence on the government bringing in water. All of this has resulted in vulnerability to climate change. So, how do we work? We work with the community. So, our approach is a bottom up enabling approach. We sit down with the community, plan with the community, what do they want. So, basically, we focus on community mobilization. Give me a minute, just
Just for everybody, Kanupriya is joining us from an airport. She has a flight to catch, and she's been generous enough to allocate her time to us. So yeah.
I'm sorry, it was a last minute. It was a last minute meeting that I could not skip. So, if you can hear me, I can continue.
Yeah, we can hear you. There's no
Okay,
problem.
all right. Okay. So we basically do community mobilization. We facilitate what we call as social capital. That is, invest in people and bring them together. Revive traditional rainwater harvesting. Again, we sit down with the village. Rainwater harvesting is a very, very specific area, specific need. So we sit down with the village. In a village also, or in the area that we work, there might be different types of structures that are required. So we sit down with the people, learn from the people how things were done in the past, and help them improve. We do a lot of participatory action research, that is, sit down with them, improve our own work. So over a period of time, if you see, we would take learnings from one project or one area into another to improve the work or adapt the water harvesting, make it more efficient. And finally, do advocacy and networking. The idea of advocacy and networking is, we're an NGO. We can work only in so much of an area. So the idea is that people are able to learn from our work and replicate it in other areas. All of this obviously enhanced resilience to the climate change and the climate variability that happens. Our methodology is very, very simple. We follow a participatory approach where we create village level institutions of collective wisdom. So we get the people together, do a lot of participatory exercises to promote the rich traditions of rainwater harvesting. We promote local technology. We use local material, local expertise. So basically, everything that we do, we use everything that is available within the village, train the people to do it, so that when we move out, they're able to maintain it. And that is the reason why our work is very, very popular. So basically, all of it, there are three broad areas. We would create a community institution, bring together people, create a community institution, collect community contribution. So, so when we work, the idea is sustainability. How do we bring in sustainability or an attachment? So, in each project that we work, each structure that we create, the community has to contribute. So, in many structures, the contribution goes up to 50%, and that contribution has to come in cash. It has to be verifiable through a bank account, so that we know that the money has actually been raised by the community. And obviously, we do a lot of community empowerment. We have a whole media unit that makes films. So basically, we do a lot of it's a community video unit. So basically, the village people, they they do the videos for us, and then we sit down and we edit them. We do a lot of trainings. We have a whole section of in the organization that does IEC material, which is information, education, communication material, basically to involve people and to train them. In facilitating the social capital at the village level, we have what we call as a Jal Sabha. A Jal Sabha literally translates as a water user association. They are the prime people that we work with. They are the ones we sit down and plan in terms of what type of a structure they would want. They are the ones who bring in um, the community buy-in. We also involve the local self-governance unit. In India, we have decentralized governance, which is also called as the panchayat. We also try to bring in together the panchayat so that we are working along with the community and the local government representative bodies. Then we have what we call as the Jal Samiti. A Jal Samiti is basically at the block level. Water is a shared resource. So if we are doing a water project, it might just happen that the catchment of that water project is in one village, but the harvesting and the storage structure might be in another village. So the idea is to bring people from a certain block, a certain area together, so there is a consensus. So the water might flow from one village to the other, stored in the other village, but the people in the catchment can also use the water. So that is the purpose of the Jal Samiti. Then we have the Jal Parishad. Again, this is people from various research institutions. We have experts, we have members of the government. So the whole idea of the Jal Parishad is to constantly help us improve our work. I often like to say adapt our water harvesting to the changes that happen. And finally, we have a Jal Sansad, which is basically all our stakeholders. So we sit down once in a year. It's more like sharing case studies and understanding what work has been done, what's been the impact. So that's the Jal Sansad. We do a lot of, in terms of our process, we do a lot of community mobilizations, we do rapid appraisals, we do PRAs, we do consultations, and we assess the community need. Based on that, we decide on the rainwater harvesting structure or system that has to be made. So when we talk about rainwater harvesting, it is basically of two types. So we have water recharge, where the water collects and the water goes down in the ground and used over a period of time later on. And the other is impounding, where we hold the water on the surface. Now, in our area, we do not do recharge because the water is so saline that if the water was to seep down, it is of no use, it will become saline. So, all the structures that we do are impounding structures. So, on the screen, what you see is what we call as a talab or a village pond. This is basically made in an area where we have a catchment. So, if you see in this particular photograph, there is a catchment at the back on the rear, which is identified through our surveys that we do. And depending on the slope, we make the talab, which is basically a pond, open surface pond, with an embankment. The embankment is not a load bearing embankment. And Since the area is very flat, it has just about a 5% gradient. We make these water channels, which you can see on the rear of the photograph. We also do nadis, which are ponds and grasslands. So traditionally, the talabs were located close to the village for human consumption, and nadis are ponds and grasslands. They were located in grasslands for animals because it is a pastoral economy. But basically now, because of the breakdown and the huge population pressure, both humans and animals, they drink from the same structure. This is the water channel that I was talking to you about. As most of the area is very flat where you can make a pond, we we do surveys, and based on those surveys we make these water channels so that all water that falls, we just have about 200 millimeters of rainfall, all of it comes into the pond. We do school tankas. School tankas are underground rainwater harvesting tanks. They are made within the school compound, and the idea here is to be able to harvest all the water from the roof. So based on the size of the school, the number of children, the catchment area, we design these tanks where water is collected and children can have that water through the year. We also do similar structures in households. Here in this particular photograph, you will see that this man does not have a house, so we've made an artificial catchment around the tank. So the water will fall on that cemented ground that you see, will collect in his tank. And because we also talk about safe water, we put hand pumps so that the water that they draw is clean. We do recharge wells. These are very interesting structures. They're either made close to a pond or in close to a sand dune. And in these, what happens is that the water seeps in during the night. People draw it out during the day, and then again it empties out. So the water here is again sweet. Sweet, by sweet I mean it is portable. It is very, very interesting because people have clean, actually filtered water. And like I said, that we're always looking at new technologies, new ideas. We have done a pilot in about 15 villages about with sand dams. Sand dams are basically used very, very extensively in Kenya. These are made in dry riverbeds. The idea of a sand dam is not to collect rainwater but to collect sand. So the sand actually bears all the water, and then you can scoop out and dig out water in the dam, and below the dam it results in recharge. So we've done it in 15 villages with a lot of success. So this is a whole integrated system that we try to develop in the village. Whatever is possible we do. There might be some different structure, but on an average this is the kind of integrated water resource management structure system that we do. So we have large catchment areas, which can be a plain catchment, it can be a oran, a sacred forest, we would develop that, a gorger, a grassland. We also do hardy grasses on the gorges, which also prevents um, which also makes sure that there is fodder available for the livestock. We make feeder channels. Then from the feeder channel, the water comes into the pond. Then we have tanks, water tanks, which are close to the house. Women do not have to walk. And we also focus on sanitation. So we do sanitation. We help communities construct toilets, but not through giving money. So basically, focus on behavior change. So what we use an approach called the CLTS, the Community-Led Total Sanitation, where people are encouraged to make toilets and adopt behavior change. This is a little bit about the impact of our work. So we've created inclusive Jal Sabhas in about 700 villages, where we've done different types of rainwater harvesting structures. There is a unique financing system that we set up. So basically, each village has to raise money um, to be able to construct that structure. And once they've moved out, they set up these pricing mechanisms. So obviously, in a community structure, you need regular maintenance. So they set up a pricing mechanism where people come, and if they're coming and taking more water, they're able to they pay something which goes back into the long term maintenance of the structures. We've had a lot of evaluations done of our work, and in a UNDP evaluation, the most striking impact was the benefit that happened in terms of poverty reduction. There was a 140% reduction in expenditure on purchase of water. A lot of people in our area, because there is no water, use tractor tankers. These are tankers with 4,000 liters of water to purchase water for drinking. The EU said that it is a water and sanitation project which should be proposed to be implemented in other areas. I wanted to show some design elements of the work that we do. This is the sand dam photograph that I showed you earlier. So I just wanted to show how it is designed and constructed. So this is a dry riverbed that you see. We've gone down to the bedrock. So basically, we have dug deep inside and gone to the bedrock. And in the bedrock, we have constructed a water seal. So basically, what has happened is that we have gone down. We have used a lot of iron to fix these stones and made a water seal, so the water does not penetrate the below the below the structure from the rock. So basically, what has happened is that the structure has risen from the rock, so it's become a part of the rock. And here's the dam. So it's about 51-meter long, and the project cost and the community contribution are written. So here, if you see the structure, what we've done is we've tried to tame the river. So the steps have brought the river in between. So when the river now flows, it only flows from the center section, and not and so the wings prevent it from going on either side. This is after the the rains, so you would see that the water actually flows away. This particular project has had a major impact where it has led to a recharge of 103 wells. So, wells which were actually all either dry or saline have now become portable, out of which three are wells which are used by the government to supply drinking water. So, a simple structure like this has led to uh, a recharge in about 103 wells. People here, farmers, after a very very long time, have started growing vegetables, chilies, and has had a this simple intervention has had a major change in their life. This is a pond in terms of how we do a pond. This is a flat ground, if you see, more or less flat. On the rear is the side area we identified. Mm, it used to it would be a puddle of water that was collected. Here we had all the women come together to actually plan the structure, and we trained them how to design the structure, how to work on the structure. And then now you see we on the rear you see we've made an embankment where the water collects in. Here the women are very very active, and they charge 50 rupees for anybody who wants to come and take a water tanker of 4,000 liters. The total capacity to harvest water in one season is 12,300 cubic meters. Women still have to walk to the talab to collect water, but obviously their time to collect water has been reduced to half. This is a saline well, and this is a village where we've done a recharge well. It's a very interesting village. It is on the border of four districts, and people would spend nearly 500 rupees for 4,000 liters of water to transport it. Here we've done a recharge well. So here, if you see this pond, In the background was basically could not retain water for more than 15 to 20 days because of the soil. So we made a recharge well. In this recharge well, the water is clean. It actually seeps in. So when the water comes into the talab and seeps down, the water seeps in the well, and you can keep on drawing water from the well. Here, this is a photograph just after the rain. So this water in the talab or the pond will stay there for about a month. But this particular well will be able to give water through the years. So the community here is able to harvest about 50,000 liters of water every day throughout the year because of the subsoil recharge that happens. Then we do household rainwater harvesting tanks. In this particular structure, if you see the structure where the lady is standing, this was her source of drinking water. This is how she stored her drinking water, which is open. We call them kacha tankas. These are basically open, just covered with thorns. Uh, we helped them revive the structure. So this is a stone masonry structure that we made, and fenced it close to her house to make a catchment area. So now, if you see, each structure is designed in a manner to be able to harvest enough water. So there is a ground catchment here, and if you look at the pipes, then that is the rooftop. So all the water that falls on the roof and the ground gets collected in these tanks. So this is again used for drinking water. In each home, we put a hand pump so that at least I go back to the photograph, this remains clean, the water harvested remains clean, and people are able to draw water through a hand pump. So basically, I would say our work is about local actions for a global change. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Kanupriya. And you also showed a video. Would you like me to show that now or later on?
As you wish. It's just a movie like a community video unit that we did. It's another case study on a talab if you want to show it now or later.
Yeah, I think I'll share it now with everybody. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Perfect.
Contrary to these drought conditions, Tirsingri Soda, a village in Barmer, Rajasthan, has achieved water security by adapting its water harvesting structure, the Molab Talab, to the growing changes in climatic conditions. Increasing drinking water scarcity due to change in rainfall patterns and recurring droughts in the recent past brought this village community together to address the situation at hand. They formed a Jal Sabha, a water users association, and within a time span of 3 years, adapted this village pond to the changing climate.
शुरुआत में त्रिशंगली मानव तालाब इसमें मिट्टी भरी हुई थी और पानी कम आवक होने से 6 महीना पानी इसमें चलता था। 2008 के अंदर हमने पहला इसके खुदाई का काम शुरू किया। तो खुदाई का काम शुरू करने के बाद पहला 6 महीना पानी चला और इसके खुदाई करने के बाद कम से कम 8 महीना पानी मिला और 2009 के अंदर हमने फिर दूसरी बार इसको गहरा किया और इसका आगोर भी बढ़ाया, जो आज की स्थिति में ये पानी हमारे 12 महीना तक मिल जाएगा और हम बहुत प्रसन्न हैं।
This work was carried out aiming to harvest every drop of water that fell in the catchment area, even during a scanty rainfall.
5-6 किलोमीटर बाद पार है और नहर है तुम उनको पानी आवे वो पानी आवे गल मोरे तालाब में पानी इकट्ठा होवे से दिखे गवाड़ आ रहा हूं।
The Jal Sabha also ensures an equitable and controlled distribution of water through community norms and management systems. As all decisions regarding the talab must involve the community, the upkeep of the pond is also carried out through a system of collective responsibility. Each household in the village contributes money, and for neighboring villages, a charge of rupees 100 per tanker is levied. This money is deposited in the development fund known as the Jal Kosh, which then finances the maintenance of the pond. Moreover, if the water level drops, the Jal Sabha restricts the distribution of water in order to ensure that water is available of life, providing drinking water to 20 villages around it. Since the adaptation of the structure, the village has faced no threat of water scarcity, even in a year of drought.
वो तालाब का पानी अगर निर्जल है तो हमारे इन तालाब में ये वही तालाब का पानी जमीन में समाये हुए उन पानी में बेरियों पासी खोद कुरार बेरियों में वही पानी में गांव में लोगों वास्ते हमारा जीवन उन पानी में निर्भर है.
This example of water harvesting can be replicated to other parts of this arid region. However, it is unfortunate to see these traditional practices being ignored. Jodhpur is an example of such negligence. The city once had an unparalleled water harvesting system, with lakes, ponds, and step wells that were connected through an intricate maze of channels, ensuring that the overflow of one went into the other. This system, rather than being adapted for present-day needs, was neglected and went into disuse. Today, Jodhpur city is dependent on water coming in from faraway places that has made people complacent and vulnerable. It is important for us to now rethink. What would happen if the pipeline went dry? In this year of drought, a small village in the drylands of Rajasthan is showing us a way forward. In the present day scenario where adaptation to climate change is a global challenge, examples like this can perhaps give answers to solve the growing crisis of water insecurity.
Sharing my screen. Great. Thank you so much, Kanupriya. That was an amazing presentation, and I think looking at the ground realities, it's very hard to imagine, how difficult the situation. I mean, how difficult it is on ground, and the scarcity of water is a problem that I believe everybody is eventually going to face. So being prepared for it is one way, and then obviously finding solutions is the other way. And yeah, I think the case studies that you showed, those were very interesting. But yeah, now I would like to invite the students. If you have any questions for Kanupriya, please feel free to ask her. And may I request you all to just turn on your cameras while you're asking your questions, please? Thank you. Are there any thoughts or any questions at all about the work that is being done? Questions. I have one thing to ask you. So, Kanupriya, you mentioned that most of the work is based on participatory action research. So, I assume there would be a long process around, how this method works, where you would get in touch with the community and you would, sit with the community to find this, to identify the problems and then to look for solutions. Typically, for a project, how long would this mean? How long would this engagement mean?
It depends because besides being participatory, our work is also demand driven. So we go into areas, we do what I said as rapid research, rapid rural appraisals. We sit down with the community, but the demand has to come from them. So sometimes in a village it is very easy, just 1 month, 2 months, sometimes 6 months. Raising community contribution becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So basically, in terms of NGOs, I would say there would be two types of NGOs. One would be an enabling NGO, one would be a delivery NGO. A delivery NGO is very easy, you go and deliver. What we are trying to do is enable. So getting anybody to change behavior, to understand, it takes time. But now that our people know about our work, they know the impact, it is easy, relatively easy, yes. So it's very difficult to give a timeline.
Yeah.
It might be 1 month, 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah. And is there like a back and forth process where you go do research and then there's something that is implemented and then it is left to the community to take charge of it, and then do you go back to the project sometimes, or
Yes,
yeah,
that happens all the time. I mean, we would do a particular project. They have, like I said, sometimes they do improvements. They do improvements which we feel that we can implement in other projects when they see the impact. So, in many places we see that they've actually further developed the project once we moved out.
yeah,
So because it's a partnership, so then we learn from them, and then we implement that in a different area. So we do a lot of exposure visits between communities. Like I'm talking about these rainwater harvesting tanks. People have now started putting tiles on it and even using the top surface as a harvesting area. So this is something that we never thought. So it's a constant learning process from the community also.
yeah. Any questions? Please don't feel shy. You can ask whatever question you have, or any thoughts on what Kanupriya just presented to us. Burke, would you like to have a go? Very hard to get them to ask questions.
Actually, probably just searching so many different places also becomes difficult. In case anybody has any questions they want to ask me by mail, or they want to know more, they want to know more details in terms of designing, we'd be happy to share that. We in terms of how it is done.
That'll
If
be
they
great.
write to me,
Yeah,
I'd be happy to.
that'll be great, Kanupriya. And I think once again, I'm just going to check one more time. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask Kanupriya. Otherwise, like she said, I'll share her email IDs with you, and you can write to her. Um, all right, I think we'll thank Kanupriya then. Could I just request everybody to turn on your cameras and quickly say thank you to Kanupriya, please? Um,
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kanupriya. Really appreciate. We know that you had a busy schedule and you had to have a flight to catch, so you're at the airport and it's like 8:30 a.m. for you. I understand it's not very easy to do that, but once again, thank you so much for coming today. And it was a very informative session. And I'll definitely share the your email ID with the students, and I hope they'll write to you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye.